Welcome back. Well, yes, we do have Dr. Patrick Dakum joining us this morning from our studios in Abuja. He's a public health physician. He's also an assistant professor, Department of Epidemiology and Public Health School of Medicine, University of Maryland, in Baltimore, U.S., former Commissioner for Health, Plateau State, CEO, Institute of Human Virology, Nigeria. Good morning, Prof, and thank you for joining us today. Well, what a time it is globally.
Good morning.
Yeah, but
Looking at Chamberlain and all the crew in Lagos.
Yeah, thank you. So, looking at how all of this is playing out here in Nigeria, I know different parts of the world, on a case-by-case basis, they have different strategies that they adopt to tackle it depending on how their own cases are playing out. What do you think about how we're approaching ours here?
Well, thank you very much. I think the benefit of looking at or studying what is happening in other countries is just to learn key lessons. In real sense, implementation requires that we look at the context in which Nigeria is so that we'll be able to apply the principles that have worked in those places in the context of our own in Nigeria here. And usually you ask what will be the difference. The difference with Nigeria and a lot of the other countries so far that have advanced or have gotten high cases of the virus is the fact that we're a resource-limited country. Whatever communication that we have here is not as it is over there. The infrastructure that we have for responding to those that unfortunately get the virus is not the same as it is in the other countries. The rapidity with which we will be able to deploy resources is also not the same. So generally, whether it's human resources, financial resources, we are limited, and that is why we are referred to as a resource-limited country. Now, having said that, it means then that we will now look at what is it that works here in Nigeria. When we talk about communication, if they are now blipping everybody's phone, can we do the same thing here or not? So these are just general principles. In terms of the question that you have asked, and that is, how are we doing? I believe that we are moving in the right direction. The measures that are taken are the global time-based measures when it comes to prevention and when it comes to treatment. The question for us is, are we moving at the speed that we should move? And if we are not, then I think something needs to be done more drastically. And in my estimation, I will rate that we're doing all that it is right to do. The speed at which we are doing it needs to increase to a very large extent, especially looking at the way it has rapidly spread in other countries. We need to learn lesson and take measures that are a bit more severe than what it is now.
Well, with regard to the rapidity, which you just mentioned now, and bringing it back to our own case, because one key determinant of that in terms of the numbers now is the testing. So some of them look at the testing per million and then look at the average, for instance, globally in Europe as well. They look at that comparing why do we have this number of cases and the likes. But in our own case here, we haven't done as much test. Is it normal to say, well, if we have a lot more tests, maybe per million people, we'll have a lot more cases or may have a lot more cases. So could that be reasons why maybe when people are usually alarmed when they see today you have this figure, tomorrow it jumps? Any connection in that, you think?
Well, definitely the total number of tests that you carry out will determine what your actual prevalence is. That is the number of people that are infected. And you can clearly see that because this is a new thing to everybody and also in Nigeria, the availability of those test kits has also been an issue. I was very, very excited when 2 nights ago, I think, I saw on TV, I think the Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Health, taking delivery of test kits and taking delivery of other protective equipments that will be needed. So for me, I believe that just like a lot of other people have mentioned, that the speed with which we are able to now test more people, the more we will be able to get over this. Remember that when we talk about public health measures, virtually everything are now in jingles, they are now in the public space. But when we talk about the speed, for example, when we say testing, who are we going to test? Are we going to test everybody? Are we going to test suspects, or who do we test? There are many people now that are calling some of us and asking, look, I want to just carry out a test. I do not know whether I have this virus or not. And I say, well, I don't think you have been exposed, and because you have not been exposed, please, there's no point having a test. But remember that there's a period of time that people don't have symptoms. And also the methodology by which people could contact it are becoming more widespread. Let's look at what's happening, for example, in New York. A lot of the new cases are coming from people that touch surfaces. They touch rails. You enter a bus, you are holding a rail. You enter a restaurant, you are holding a rail. You are touching surfaces. And we do know that this virus can survive for some time on surfaces. So if you look at what they are doing now, they're doing quite a lot of cleaning. So a number of people that have contacted the virus are probably symptomless, and while they are symptomless, at least 2-3 days before the onset of their symptoms, it is possible for them, there's what we call viral shedding, it's possible for them to be transmitting the virus. So it means then that the earlier we have widespread testing for people who have had any close contact or in places where cases have been reported, the better. Now, look at the mobility that we have in Nigeria. Somebody today is in Abuja. Airports may not be functional, but go to the motor park. People are constantly in movement. People are touching one another. They are touching surfaces. It's difficult within the containment of transportation to limit people's, to distance people. So in that situation, the virus travels so quickly. Let me give an example with that of China. The first case was reported December 27th. But by 10 days after, it had spread from just one county there in Wuhan market, it had spread to about 100 and something counties. It means then that it is very possible from just Abuja here, if care is not taken within just a week or two, for us to have this virus in several other places. Because people are constantly moving, they are constantly meeting each other. Some people have said, well, it is an urban thing, it's not rural, so we don't have to bother. But you cannot delineate rural and urban here in Nigeria strictly by a line. You don't draw a wall and say, I've crossed from urban to rural. People are constantly moving from one point to the other. So I think that when the issues you have mentioned, and that is testing, we definitely are not testing enough. We need to test more. Hopefully now with the availability of so much test kits, we will have more widespread testing. For me, I recommend that anybody that is in a hospital, for example, whatever the source of your fever, get tested. Get those people tested. Anybody, for example, that has got a close contact, even if they has not shaken hands, even if it is just standing near somebody, as long as there is a case around your community, we need to recommend testing for those. The more testing we do, the more the true prevalence will. And then now the next thing is, if we find those people and isolate them very quickly, we limit the spread. So I agree with you absolutely to say that the testing should be penetrated very quickly. I don't know how many testing centers we have. At the last count, I knew about 5. We definitely need to rapidly expand to a minimum of a testing site for every state. I know that samples are being collected from different points and transported, but we definitely need to rapidly spread, get testing sites open as quick as possible.
You know, Dr. Dakum, one thing that worries a lot of people is the fact that, this is very important. The COVID-19 is really important. But then you see that not just Nigeria, a lot of countries are saying they don't have enough testing kits, or, we'll probably get into that later on as to what modality is being used to test here in Nigeria. So the question is, why is such an important testing kit, for such a dangerous virus, scarce at this point in time?
Remember that even though the family of the coronavirus has been with us for ages, like you have seen, it's the same family of viruses that has caused the severe acute respiratory syndrome, the Middle East respiratory syndrome, the common cold that has happened in some places. These are all by the same family. However, this strain of virus is new. And with every strain of virus, there is a need for a testing platform that is specific to that virus. Now, those testing platforms are just being developed. And being developed, they are also being deployed. So it's like we are building the ship and sailing it at the same time. So we will need to be looking at what works and what doesn't work. At least now the PCR-based tests, which are the tests that detect the virus, the viral antigen itself, are available, and we know they are very specific and very sensitive. So for those ones, it's just a matter of production and a matter of availability. Now that we know that this works. The other, of course, is if we can get point-of-care tests. Point-of-care tests are tests that you can carry out maybe at a primary health care facility, way closer to the people, and you do not have to take it somewhere far. The benefit of rapid tests, which are maybe antibody-based, may not necessarily be in clearly saying you definitely have it, but it goes a long way in screening and enabling those that have been screened to be positive, because those are highly sensitive. Then it is sent to another lab for confirmation. Remember that outbreak of diseases and response is not something that we have not gone through before. And probably at some point, we probably will get into talking about how do we now sustain what we have in order to move forward. And I think we need to get the conversations to that level. So right at the onset, when we're setting structures, we're not just setting structures for emergency, we're also setting structures that can be available in case of the next emergency. So we definitely need to get more tests out there. The reason that we don't have those is because the production globally is low. Nigeria is beginning to get additional test kits, and we know that it is something that countries now will want to ration. But the good news is that there are several companies now that are beginning to they are even they've been approved by FDA. Like we have platforms, lab platforms here in Nigeria that could be converted to test for the coronavirus. Those platforms are available in a number of places. They come from Abbott, from Roche, and they have been approved by the FDA in the US. Now, their availability here in Nigeria is what we're looking forward to, so that we'll be able to activate more testing sites as these tests become available. So it's something new, it's something coming up, and we're moving. When we started out with HIV, sometimes in 2002 in Nigeria, tests were only available in teaching hospitals. But we rapidly scaled up and now have a rapid test kits that is highly sensitive, highly specific. And these test kits for the HIV now are available at point of care. In fact, now we've gone to the point of having...
Just a moment. Just a moment.
Saliva. So we will get there with this.
Right. Doc, I'd like you to break it down just briefly here. You talk about testing, test kits. It's a term that has been thrown around a lot. And for a lot of people, it's perhaps hard to understand. I remember the question was put to the Minister of Health that how are we testing? And it says, well, we're using something approved by the WHO. A lot of people have tried to push test kits to us, but we said, no, we need to use what is approved by the WHO. And then another expert said, you know what, it's not like we use a test kit. It's a reagent based. How is the test conducted in Nigeria? And if we need to upscale, what do we need to look into?
Well, first of all, is we have not yet gotten a kit that we use that we can take blood and go and test. No. If, for example, you want to have a test now, what we need to do is, first of all, we need a medium, we need a swab stick, and we take this and a container. The medium is where we'll put the sample on. The swab stick is what we get the sample from. What samples are we talking about? We are going to get a sample from your nostrils, we'll get from the nasopharynx, meaning we are going to put some swab stick into your around your throat and gargle. That's why sometimes when we are to take the test, we advise that don't have a full stomach at that time, because we don't want you to throw up easily. But when we need to take it, we take it, and it's usually by somebody who is able to do that. And the people that do carry out the sample collection are trained for that. A number of teams in all the states have been trained at least for sample collection. Now, when it is taken, is put in this medium, it is now transported to the lab safely. And in the lab now, they put it under, the medium is grown, and then you look at whether, in fact, you can detect the viral antigens. So in a simple term, that's the way it is. A lab scientist can give you a more step-by-step description of how this is done. But basically, for the purpose of a layman, this is this is the step. So it means then that for now, with the test that we have, when we talk about...
Doctor, one moment. How long does it take on average for one to get a result for a test from the description that you've given? What's the average time within which one can get a result?
Approximately, it takes between 24 and 48 hours. Between 24 and 48 hours, depending on the volume of work that the people in the lab do have. But approximately 24, 48 hours, you get the result.
Please help allay some fears that are out there on the streets. A number of people are so afraid. There's a lot of paranoia. You would also imagine there's a lot of anxiety. People are even afraid to touch each other at all, to do anything whatsoever. Now, there is word on the street that the coronavirus itself can last so long on certain surfaces, and we just received a report on the front page of the dailies this morning that on printed surface there is little or no chance of contracting the virus. Allay these fears for us. People are afraid to even touch any surface whatsoever. There is a lot of anxiety on the streets. There's a lot of fears. What do people need to do, especially concerning touching surfaces while at home or while outside?
Well, I can imagine the cause of the anxiety and the fear, and the anxiety and the fear is all over. And you see, I always say that we need to look at issues differently when we are going through an emergency than when we have contained the virus and we are now living lives that we say next to normal. Emergency in the sense that during emergency, we need to take emergency measure. That is, some people call it draconian, some people call it extreme. But I prefer to be on the cautious side of extreme than to be on the side of, well, you know, you can do whatever you can, just it's not as bad as people are saying it. For me, let me tell you what Dr. Patrick Dakum will do and will not do. I will come to a studio like this. There is a surface, I'm touching the surface. I will go, my phone, I put it somewhere, I will carry it and I'll take it. When I go to outside now, I'll stay and discuss with people. But for me, Dr. Dakum, I will not carry my hand, especially on plain surfaces, place it there and then take this hand to my face. If you look at what simple precautions is that right here, I have this, okay? And that is my hand sanitizer. Now, the moment I leave this place, I am going to open it and clean my hand. Approximately, we touch our faces about 70 to 75 times a day. It can be just the nose, it can just be the ears, it can be any surface that you have exposed membranes is a potential area of entry for this virus. So you must limit it. If I enter my car now, of course I drove and therefore, even if I'm not too sure who has touched the handle before I left, I'm going to make sure I clean my hand. So what we are saying is that you can touch certain surfaces, but ensure that you do the simplest thing. Wash your hand with water and soap for a minimum of 20 seconds. And not just wash like this, but wash all over your hand. So even though I have a sanitizer, when I get home now, I will still wash with soap and water and then sit down. I don't know who has come to my house and gone out. When I go, I sit down with my family, we talk. I go to the office, we sit with colleagues. But for now, we maintain certain social distancing. I hope you know that the extreme nature of it now is that in the UK, they have now said a gathering of not more than 2 people. Two people. It means they are trying to tell everybody, remain where you are for just this period of time. Stop touching those surfaces for just this period of time. And where you cannot and you do touch, please wash your hand with soap and water, because the reflex of touching your face is just the urge is just too much. I told my wife, I said, you know what? It's difficult for me to stop touching my face. So what I'm going to do is ensure that I put a barrier between my hand and face, and that is soap and water and sanitizer. I struggle not to touch the face, but even if by whatever reflex a fly just comes or dust just fall down, you are not going to start thinking, should I or shouldn't I? You go ahead and touch, and you don't know where you've touched. Remember, the speed with which this spread has happened is such that we got to be very, very severe in what we do now, at least in the next 3 to 4 weeks. What I said earlier on was that, remember in China, December 27, but by mid-January, the cases had gone into thousands of cases. So we are in an emergency mode, but we are not behaving as if we are in an emergency mode. We are behaving as if all is normal. You go to places, in a crowded place, people are still doing high five with you. And I'm like, wait, there will come a time that we probably will get to doing high five. But for the meantime, in the next couple of weeks, let's be cautious.
Okay, doctor, it's as much as human nature, habits, you struggle. Just as you talked about the fly landing on your face and how do you respond. Sometimes you don't think, as you rightly said. But we've seen those other countries in terms of how they progress, the stages that they're in to try to slow the growth or the spread, of the pandemic, which is what we're also considering doing here. But beyond that, because there are people who have symptoms, they don't know if they have COVID-19 because they've not been tested. How should we approach some of these things now, in addition to what you've said? Because if there are some researchers who are pushing for mass blood tests, such that you can know who's got antibodies, who's immune to it, how much has it spread, because a lot of the actions we take here will be dependent on how many people have it and how we spread. So what do you recommend we'll be doing at this stage?
I thank you very much. I mentioned something earlier, and what I did say was that I recommend that anybody that gets into a hospital for whatever reason, should get tested. The other thing is that case isolation must be also a very vigorous thing, and you cannot isolate somebody that you have not defined as a case. So it means then that the idea of mass testing and getting people isolated is very, very important in what we're doing. Now, how do we go about it in order to be effective? Every state has an emergency operating center. Anybody that believes or thinks that I have a fever or have a cough reports to that place. Even if it is common cold, that sample should be taken. And when that sample is taken, it will be tested. Now, if from the 36 states we are having anybody that thinks, let's forget about the asymptomatic cases for now, because the asymptomatic cases, out of those that are asymptomatic, we will have a good percentage of them, close to about 70 that may turn symptomatic. For those that are symptomatic, close to about 80% of those will be mild. About 10% of those will be severe, and maybe 5% will be critical. So, but for as long as you have it, it means then that you could transmit it to another person. So every state must activate a system whereby before you are able to have the capacity to do the test yourself, collect the samples and send them. Let us grapple with those that we have while we are expanding testing centers. And as we expand testing centers to ensure that every state has, we will get to that point where states will be able to have so many testing centers.
All right.
I believe that the companies are working around the clock to get the production available. We will work around the clock to ensure that we are prepared for that.
All right, Dr. Dakum, this is a conversation which we'll love to have with you again next week. We do appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much indeed.